Good evening. I now call the September 10th, 2025 Special City Council Study Session to order. Tonight I'm joined by Mayor Pro Tem James Bazagian, Council members Ed Albrecht, David Shapiro, and Alicia Weintraub, as well as city staff. Wanted to take a moment and provide an overview of the study session format since it differs from a formal meeting. A study session is more of an informal workshop, allowing for additional conversation, discussion, exploration, and understanding of a complex issue. It encourages brainstorming and provides a forum for weighing options and interacting to hear questions and comments from the community. On that note, I'd like to thank the members of the public and our city commissioners who are joining us tonight for this important meeting. We value your feedback. Tonight, our goal is to review and discuss the long-term financial sustainability of current services and consider revenue enhancement measures for the general fund, providing direction to staff regarding next steps to stabilize our financial future. I do have a couple of comment cards here. They're not necessary tonight. We're going to be raising our hands, being called on. We're We're going to be coming up to the podium to speak so that we can get you in the microphone and actually record what you're saying. This is not a time session. This is not like a normal input at our city council meetings. This is a two-way conversation, and we hope to get a chance for everyone here to engage. Having said that, I've got 2 cards here, so if you've already filled them out, I'll call on you first. With that, let's get started. We're starting with a fiscal, sustainability, and revenue initiatives, and our city manager, Kindon Meek, and Chief Financial Officer, Ron Allers, will present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, like you, I'm so excited to see so many members of our public and our commissioners here tonight. This is a good showing, and I think it's important as we discuss this item that we look at different ideas, different input, and we welcome those thoughts. And especially as we have this dialogue, it is the opportunity, whereas in our traditional meetings during public comment, we usually can't respond. This gives us a chance now that questions can be asked and we can respond, and then if we don't have the answer, we can go back and look for it and then respond accordingly. I do want to share with the public, I think most people have noticed that we do have printouts in the back. If you haven't already received one, we do have 25 copies, and so if we need more, we'll get more. But we will be going through those throughout the evening and also showing on the screen some summaries from those different handouts. So if we could start sharing the screen. Ron, do you have that? And while Ron's pulling that up, Council, if you'll indulge me here, I'm going to share a little bit of a personal experience. It was about this time 5 years ago that I applied for the city manager position. So it was during COVID, and I came down to Calabasas several times before I even applied, and also then after I applied for the position. And we walked through Old Town as a family. We visited all of the parks. We drove through the different neighborhoods. We stopped at the schools. We spent time at the commons. I went to the lake, got kicked out of the lake because I didn't have a CPHA pass. The security guard was wonderful, very kind. But when we came here, we just fell in love with the city. And I think that's an experience that most people feel and is replicated over and over again. And I think it's very easy to say that Calabasas is just an amazing city. It's beautiful, it's safe. We have great schools. The amenities that the city has to offer are just first class. In fact, out of the 482 cities throughout the state, I'd probably say that if we're not in the top 10%, we're maybe even in the top 5%. And this awe and splendor that we attribute to Calabasas is something that I think is really done by the work of this council and previous councils, but also so many of our commissioners here and other residents who have built this community over time. And so it doesn't happen. It's not something that just happens. It requires a lot of work, time, and thought. And so the people in this room and those who've been here before really deserve that credit. At the same time, we're starting to become an aging city, and we're starting to see our infrastructure and our capital show its age. In fact, just this last week, the Mayor Pro Tem received an email from somebody in the community asking why the fences at Gates Canyon Park were broken and missing. And part of that is, the honest answer is we don't have money for all of the capital projects that we need to do. In fact, if the council remembers, during this budget cycle, we approved one capital project. So we allocated $125,000 plus some library funds, another $125,000 to do the audiovisual equipment over at Founders Hall. There are probably millions of dollars of improvements that we need to do throughout the city, whether it's upgrades to our restrooms, ADA accessibility, facilities like the community center, tennis and swim. For example, just one, we have an electrical panel at the tennis and swim center right now that we wake up and pray every day that it doesn't go out. Because it is that bad. And that cost alone is about $650,000 to fix that electrical panel for that whole facility. Now, the reason the council decided not to do too many projects is we wanted to see what happens going forward with our revenue and expenses. We wanted to safeguard some of our capital reserves for projects that might like an HVAC system break down immediately and we have to respond to, or that electrical panel. And so we didn't plan out those capital projects throughout the year, just knowing that we were going to have this conversation. But instead of focusing on just that, I think that the time here tonight is we're really focusing on the quality of life going into the future. I think that's the most important thing, and we want to be forward-facing as we have this discussion and look for solutions. Over the last year, we've been working on a spreadsheet that we're using to model or forecast city revenues and expenses. And Ron, if you could just start then into the next slide for me, please. Or do I have, do you mind doing that for me? Okay. So those of you who have the larger handouts, this is a summary of Exhibit A in those handouts that are stapled together. What we did is you have the full numbers, so for full transparency, you have all of the numbers. What we've printed here is just the summary of the revenues, expenses, and the surplus and deficit. So based on this spreadsheet that we've put together, you can see that revenues, our expenses outpace the revenues year after year. What happens is now this is called a structural deficit. This is not a one-off where it's a bad year, it's an economic downturn. This is a structural deficit going forward where every year there's a negative number, and that negative number grows year after year as we continue to progress, as expenses continue to outpace our revenues. Now, before I move on, I want to spend some time talking about the methodology because I think that's important. We're fortunate as staff and as with the council is we spend a lot of time in these numbers. We look at these a lot. In fact, I was joking with Ron, when I walk the dog, when I'm working in the yard, I'm thinking of these numbers. A lot of times, our residents don't have that luxury. They come to our budget meetings, and that might be a few meetings once a year that they're digging into these numbers with us. So let me spend a little bit of time on the methodology. So working closely with our budget committee, what we did is we went backwards and developed a 10-year history. So that paper is not attached to the stapled items. So if you have it, it's a free, it's on its own. It's a large print, and it says General Fund 10-year history. And so you could look at that 10-year history going back, and you can see the revenues and expenses for the last 10 years for the general fund. What we did after that is, and I'm sorry, there's going to be a lot of spreadsheets we're moving through, but again, we wanted you to have the information so you could look at it and ask questions. But with that 10-year history, at the advice and at the direction of our budget committee, they asked us to look at the averages of what costs were going up for each of these different categories. And it was an exercise that was very important to do, because what then we did is we used those averages, those historical averages, to create an escalator or a multiplier. And so if you go back to, I'm going to switch again, if you go back to Exhibit A, in your left-hand column, you can see the different categories. At the top of the revenues, down below are your expenses, and then just going over, you have your historical averages. So that's how much those categories went up over the 10 years. And then next to that, you have your escalator. And so that's what we're projecting going forward. Now, in most cases, we use the same exact number. So we use the historical number to create the multiplier or to go forward. And so again, so just that full transparency, that's how the numbers that we're looking at here. So if we do nothing, we're looking at about a $1.3 million deficit next fiscal year, growing almost to 2 million, and then 2.6, 3.3, 4. And fortunately, we have city reserves or a piggy bank that we can weather some of that. We can't weather this to this extent. It's a structural deficit, and we cannot just use our piggy bank to survive it. Now with this...
Can I jump in and
yes, please.
Give a little narrative here? And remember,
Thank you.
Tonight is a conversation, so you're going to see us a little off script here, and that's the way it was designed, so that we can have a candid conversation. If you're looking at this sheet here, the spreadsheet that you have in front of you, you might remember that in our budget meetings and in our budget presentation here at council that the finance department gave us a graph that showed income going up and expenses going up faster. And I always kept asking, well, where's the numbers behind that? You know, and we kept looking at, well, the sheriff's contract is going way up this year, so it's going to continue to go way up. and income's not so great, and so it's going to continue to be not so great. And all of the numbers that we were guessing at were just that. They were guesses. You know, they were anecdotal. This is what happened this year. I really think it's going to go, you know, stronger in the negative this year. One of us would be reading the Wall Street Journal, the other one's reading the New York Times, and we both have a totally different outlook on the economy. And so what we asked Ron to do was to go through and get the 10-year historical average so that we can say, well, that's the trend that's been going on for 10 years, little ups and downs, but we're projecting that going forward. So you'll notice that most of the escalators have been picked to match the historical average. Want to point out a couple of things in this little nuance as well. If you look at the building and planning fees, they're a little different. They're at 5% instead of 5.2%. And one of the reasons for that was, as we've recently covered here at this council, we are adjusting our fees to make sure we're capturing all of that money back for the services we provide in building planning fees. And so because of that, whatever our increase in salary and benefits is going to equal what we're doing for planning fees, because we're going to stay on top of that in the future. And so all of these numbers actually have a strong historical justification to them. And I just want to share with the community that we argued these numbers back and forth. And there's very little room for opinion when it comes to forecasting. We're really looking for solid data we can hang our hats on. So with that interruption, I'll let you continue.
No, that was a great interruption. And Mayor, I think for us as staff, one of your best emails to us was when you wrote back and said, thanks, guys, I can finally get behind the numbers. I see it. I see the patterns happening here, and so we appreciate that. Now, for further transparency, as you look on the expense side of things, if you look down below, there's two categories I just want to highlight real quickly. You have an other category and a contractual services category. And most people are going to say, what's that? What are you hiding in that? So let me just talk about a few of those. And again, we're willing to provide any type of report you'd like to see to look at these other categories or the contractual services. But just to highlight a few. So under other is our electricity and other utilities. It's our grants to the PFCs, Rotary, the Chamber. It's our events and programs. So like Pumpkin Festival, the concerts, the splash party on July 4th, all of those type of programs. It's code enforcement, and it's our prosecutor. It's our rental assistance programs. It's computers, it's IT, it's our licenses. So it's a combination of all different things that don't have a set category. It's our other category. Our contractual services include things like our M6 permit, which is the largest contract there. They do our building permits and inspections. And again, just so you're very clear, if you look at the top, there's a revenue source for building permits and fees. Those building and permits and fees offset that contract. And so we can't charge more for a permit or a building inspection than what it costs to do. And so again, that revenue, that cost for that contract is offset by that revenue up above. Other things under contractual services, street sweeping, crossing guards, building maintenance, janitorial. And those contracts go all the way down to very, very small contracts that you would see, for example, an instructor at the senior center, an instructor at tennis and swim or something like that. So where any type of contract is involved, those would be the contractual services. Now with this, Ron, if you could bring up the other spreadsheet just real quick. One of the things that Ron and I talked about, and this comes, I think, from some of the conversations with council, it comes from comments from the community, is the question has come up, and it should come up. It's the right question to ask. Why aren't we cutting more to fix this? And I think it's the right question. And let me do this first, Ron, before if you do that. Go to the cost savings initiative slide in the PowerPoint. If we could do that, and then I'll have you bring up the other one. That next slide. So for those of you following along, it's slide 3 in the packet. Over the last few years, the council has been very attentive to try to protect general funds, and these are just a few of the things that we've done to protect general funds. So, for example, we use the ARPA, the American Rescue and Plan Act funds, to redo all of our parks and help fund the renovations at the community center. Again, had we not had those funds, that would have been $5.7 million out of the general fund that we would have had to use on those projects. Most recently in our budget, the council authorized an allocation plan of about $1.6 million. What that does is it takes general fund costs and then puts them into funds that are actually where that work or that those costs should be. For example, insurance or legal fees or IT services or general landscaping that has gone now to the ad valorem, or it's gone to the library or to the community center or to the tennis and swim center. And so again, that unburdens the general fund by that $1.6 million. We've reduced staffing and have other personnel cost savings of in the tune of about $700,000. And then just most recently in the budget, the council really worked hard to find about $300,000 in different savings through contracts and other discretionary funds that they were willing to cut from this current budget. So again, the council is mindful of this, and we're trying to make those cuts, but there are very, very few places that we can actually cut from now. I mean, it's getting pretty tight of where we can come from. And even then, I think one of the things that we need to emphasize is this is really a revenue issue at this point. It's not an expense issue. We always should be looking at expenses. But let me, Ron, if you could bring up that other model. One of the things that Ron and I looked at again is, why can't we cut more? What should we be cutting? And so what we did is we brought this up, and again, this is going to be a little bit hard to see on the screen. This is that same forecast that we used, and what we did is we put in another number here. We added cost savings. So what we tried to do is, if we could come up with $1.25 million in cuts over this next year, and so we're ready for the next fiscal year, if we could have $1.25 million for that next budget, whether that's staffing cost, reducing our contract with the sheriff, reducing our programs or events, whatever that might be, and again, at the council direction, if we were able to come up with 1.25 in savings, if you scroll down, Ron, we'd still have a deficit in that fiscal year, and then the next year, you still have a deficit of almost $700,000. The next year, 1.2, 1.9, 2.5. So again, we're at a point we cannot cut our way out of this. It's impossible to do this. If we're going to do cuts, we're talking cuts of now in the tune of $2 million plus, going up to about $3 to $4 million to do that. And once you do that, each of those cuts are associated with services, amenities, programs that our public participate in and expect. So thank you for bringing that up, Ron.
So, Kendon, time-wise, how long do you want to present for before we start interacting with questions and comments?
Yeah, I think we can go through the next few slides really quickly if we could do that, just to give a quick snapshot. Is that okay?
Sure.
And then we can come back to the questions. So if we go to the next slide, and I'm not going to go through these, and Ron will cover some of the other ones. All of this information is in the staff report. It's on the packets, and so you have that. I'm not going to read through them. These, just a couple things to emphasize with a sales tax initiative. If we're looking for revenues, and if we're looking at a sales tax initiative, one of the things I want our residents to remember is that 57% of our sales tax revenues come from non-residents. So only 43% of our revenues come from residents. We're really fortunate. Not most cities don't have that luxury where most of their sales tax are paid from people who are visiting or working or whatever that might be. Again, well, each of these slides will be the same. You'll see the potential revenues if we were implemented a sales tax initiative. Next one, Ron, please. Here's what it would look like if we did put in a 1 cent sales tax initiative. If you go through there, that would bring in about $5.3 million starting out in 27, 28. And then you can see the surplus deficit line down below where it's finally in the black. And we're just going to click through these real quickly. The next one, transient occupancy tax. This is a hotel tax. We're currently at 12%. Other cities in the area, for example, Malibu's at 15, and Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles is at 14. We could generate, if we moved up 3%, we could generate another 780,000 a year. But again, if we forecast that, it's still not enough. We're still in the red. Let's keep going. Business license tax. Just last week at the mayoral luncheon, the businesses complimented the city on not having a business license tax. I think that's actually one of the things that our founding fathers were very thoughtful of and wanting to attract business. Again, we have it in here. We're not going to discuss it much. Next slide, please. At $1 million or so per year, again, we're still in the red going forward. Property taxes. I'm going to turn the next few over to Ron, and we'll do those four, and we'll do those quickly, and we'll finish up.
So property tax, Article 13 of the California Constitution, otherwise known as Prop 13, limits our property tax to 1% of the assessed value. If we could increase property tax, it's only under one condition, and that is we have to issue bonds and then use the property tax increase to pay the debt service on the bonds. We do not have a major project here to do such a bond issue. That would be, it'd have to well above 10 million, who knows, maybe 20, 30, whatever $1 million it would be. So the property tax is basically a non-issue. Parcel tax, this is a flat dollar amount on your property tax bill. It is not based on the value of the property. It is done flat dollar amount per parcel in the city. So if we did a parcel tax, a number of school districts do parcel taxes, some cities do parcel taxes. They tend to do them for specific purposes, be it police services, fire services, parks, or library. A parcel tax, by definition, it requires a 2/3 majority vote of all the citizens within the city of Calabasas. And we couldn't generate enough money off of a parcel tax. At most you would do is a vote of the public at $200 a parcel, and here's the amount of revenue that you would generate, and you can see that the surplus deficit line, the bottom line, is all negative all the way across because it just doesn't generate sufficient revenues per year at $200 a parcel tax. Next is the utility users tax. City currently has a 5% UUT on electric, cell phone landlines, and also on natural gas. Generates about 4.1 million. We could do this one of two ways. We could raise the 5%, say double it up to 10%. There are cities that have 10%, for example, Los Angeles. Or we could expand the base to make it on other utilities, whether that be water or sewer, trash services. If we did a doubling of the rate from 5 to 10%, generate another 4.1 million. And you can see here it does erase the deficit for about 5 years, and then it comes back. The increase in the UT is just not sufficient enough to outpace the increase in the expenses that the city has. And realize this with the UUT, it's on all of the customers of the utility here in the city. So it's on all the residents and on all the businesses. There is no, like the sales tax where you have out of non-residents actually paying the increase in the tax. The UT is borne by all the residents and business within the city. Assessment or community facilities district, this is similar to our landscape maintenance districts. The city could create a community facilities district and use it for a specific purpose. Again, police, fire, parks, libraries, whatever the city desires. You have different hurdles here. You would have a hurdle of designating what is a special benefit to the property owners over a base benefit. So there's different issues with the community facilities district. Again, it would not generate sufficient revenues to cover our deficit.
Mayor, I'm just going to wrap up with these last couple slides. Sponsorships and naming rights. The council has already directed us to start looking at that. In fact, in each of the models or the forecasts that we've provided, we've plugged in a number for sponsorships and naming rights. Eric and her team think $300,000 is a conservative number. They actually think they could do more. We'll come back to that as we discuss that. That's a change in policy and some direction from council, but those numbers are plugged into the models right now. Next one, please. Just a quick summary. Again, this is in your packet. We won't go over it, but it lists who pays what. If you do a sales tax initiative or a parcel tax or whatever it might be, and then the potential revenues. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending one of two options, either a 1-cent sales tax going forward in 2026, or option 2, a 3/4 cent sales tax in 2026, and then a 3% transient occupancy tax, probably in 2028 or 2030. That gives us the chance to really bring in the numbers that we need to make that red disappear. And so we're going to end right there. If we go to the next slide, we're opening it up for, we have a timeline in there of what, and we can come back to that if we need to, but really we want to get to questions and comments and allow for the public and for the council to have those questions come forward.
Okay. So do we want to start quickly with council? Do you have questions? You want to hear from the public first?
I have one question, not a comment.
Please.
Pam, this would be for you. I believe on some of these tax initiatives, it will require voter approval of 2/3 or something like that. Isn't the rule still that if it's a signature gathering from citizens that it's only majority?
Right, if it's a voter initiative that is tied to tax revenues, then instead of a special tax that would require 2/3 of the voters to approve it, it would be a majority. But it has to be a voter-based initiative.
Right. So I'd like in the future, when we do this, to have that option there, because certainly there's not that many signatures to get, and with some help, not official city help, of course, but just some unofficial help, that's a much better option than getting the 2/3. That's it.
Right, and depending on the type of tax, it's either 10% or 15% of the signatures that is required to get it on the ballot.
Okay.
Okay, Ron?
I'll just do a caveat. The parcel tax is written that it's a 2/3 majority. So Pam, correct me, even if it would be a citizen initiative, I think it's still 2/3 for the parcel tax.
Yes, if it's property related, that's different because that's set in the Constitution versus that of any other type of tax. Even if it's like a special tax that's appropriated to certain accounts.
Okay.
Okay.
The short answer was it's 2/3 for property taxes. At this point, what I'd like to do then is let's go ahead and get some feedback from the community, because really what we're looking at here, what you see in front of you is expenses exceed revenues by about $2 million going forward. We need to figure out how to close that gap. We can cut expenses, we can add revenue, but something to preserve the long-term health of our city is what we're looking for. And we're open to all sorts of ideas. We're interested in all of your thoughts. I got a hand there. I had a lady before you. If you want to just come up to the podium, it would be great so that you can use the microphone and we can hear you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Heather Leading. I live at 33. Can you hear me?
It's on. Yep, you're good.
I'm on.
Yep,
I'm too far back. How's that?
that's fine.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Heather Leading. I live at 3325 Villa Verde Court. I've been a resident for 27 years. I've been on Villa Verde for 21 years. And earlier, it was mentioned that we're a safe city, and I have to beg to differ. We have had 43% of the homes on our street broken into recently. We feel that we are not receiving support from the city. And I understand the budget is very tight, but personally, I would prefer to see money going to security and safety. And if that means cutting the library to 3 days a week, I'm for it. If it means cutting other programs, possibly even out, I'm for it. We need to feel safe in our homes, and the reality is we don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Since
Yes.
it's not a formal meeting, are we allowed to respond?
You are,
Okay.
yes.
To Heather, I just wanted to let you know that after the last burglary. A week and, yeah, 2 weeks ago, we reached out immediately. We were in communication with your HOA, and we're still waiting for that meeting to be set up. Right away, we reached out with the sheriff, our city manager, myself, and we said, we want to get a meeting. We've been trying really hard. So just this week, we heard back that your HOA is still working on getting a group together to meet with us. So just so you know that night that it happened, there was communication going, and we're still waiting.
Okay, we will definitely get back to them.
Okay.
It's just something that's,
And we can talk after,
Yeah.
but just so you
I
know,
mean, our
we want that meeting.
great. No, the issue on this, our street is not going away.
Right.
And we now have residents leaving,
Right.
moving, because they don't want to be in the city.
Okay, next up.
I'm Guy Wolf. I live in the Oaks. I suggest for revenue, speed cameras and stoplight cameras, and you don't have to buy them. You can use a service to get the revenue in there. And that's what I feel that you should have for more revenue in the Calabasas.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask Pam, my understanding is the legislature has to authorize a city to do that. Is that still the rule?
Is this in reference to the speed cameras and red light
Yes.
cameras? There has been case law at least for LA County that there has to be special authorization because now they're not enforceable. So there's different issues related to that, but I won't get into the details of that. So that, although that may be an option, there are special requirements in how you go about in doing that. It's not supposed to be a revenue generator.
There was a bill in the legislature to loosen it, and it died.
Well, I see LA has the speed cameras.
They have permission from the legislature.
Okay.
Okay, and again, we're in a brainstorming session here, so I want to thank you for your thoughts and ideas. And what I'm hoping to do is get as many ideas as we can out on the table. Remember, again, when you have an idea for us, we're looking at the magnitude of that idea as well as what your thoughts might be. No, everything's on the table.
Hi there, Frances Salette, longtime resident. I'm taking all of this in, but I do have a question. You guys talk about the business license tax. How much would that be? Is it based on, gross revenue, net? A little clarification on that, because we want to be a business-friendly city.
Cities structure it in a few different ways. Some cities have it be a head count or number of positions that business actually employs. Other cities put in a gross revenue would then be a factor or a combination of the two. Those are the two main ones. And then it would, generally, if you read the staff report, you'll see that, Camarillo generates a little over $1 million. And some other cities. So for us, and that we're really a bedroom community, $1 million is probably more on the optimistic side than it is on the conservative side for revenue generation from a business license tax. Meaning, we don't have a lot of big businesses or many businesses here in the city.
And Ron, what percentage of gross revenues would the $1 million be, and how does that compare to other cities around us and their business taxes?
Yeah, we'd have to do more research on that for that. The $1 million was just taking a look and it's like, okay, Camarillo is this, and other cities, and realized Camarillo is larger than us.
Okay.
And that's how I came up with a guesstimate of what it could be. We do have some larger employers here in the city, but we don't have huge employers here in the city. We don't have a Costco or a Walmart. We don't have a banking center or a big insurance company that's in town. Just don't have those businesses to then, base that tax on.
Okay, and so again, the 500,000 to $1 million, would you say that if we're at the million, we're no longer competitive with Los Angeles, or?
Oh, yeah, we would probably be on equal footing with Los Angeles, or maybe a little bit worse. Los Angeles business license tax is very difficult to read because they break it down into different business industries. And so to even try and figure out how that would apply to Calabasas I don't know how many hours I would take to do that.
Okay, and we're not looking for a full analysis at this time. We're just really looking for how big of an impact can an item or an idea have?
Right.
Yeah. Joe? Joe, I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes.
Oh, no. Hi, I'm Joe Chilko, a longtime resident. So, okay, the sales tax. It's unclear to me whether you're talking about a sales tax that you need for the next 10 years, or you're talking about a sales tax that we need forever. So, I don't like forever, so don't even suggest that. And I don't think it's fair to future residents. The population is going to change over time. I don't like to be cruel, but older people die, so maybe they're going to be replaced by younger people. And if you're buying a house in this city, you got to have some money. So, okay. So, that brings me to my next point. If you need it for the next 10 years, I'd be willing to support 12 years with a sunset provision. With no sunset provision, I have a lot of difficulty with this concept at all. And because of the way that you want to approach it, you want to put it into the general fund. I think that I understand why all of this has been done. I've come to every meeting. I've talked to Kindon and Scott privately about this. So it's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I may not. The point is that, the lady that brought up the point about crime, yeah, public safety is the biggest concern in this city. And I understand why you don't want to go for something that just goes into a particular fund because it's a lot harder to pass. But I'm pretty sure that you aren't going to get a lot of support for it if you're trying to go for forever. You want to consider sunset provision, and I think if you got a 10-year prediction here, and they're fairly reasonable numbers, then 12 years gives you some wiggle room. And then at that point in time, you want to go back to the residents and ask them, the residents of this city at that time, whether they'd support it. Well, you might get a different answer. So there's that aspect of it. I like the approach that you took where you were trying to say, well, okay, if we just did this, okay, that's not going to work. So I get that. But nobody imagines you're just going to do one of them, right? So, it's a foregone conclusion. And Ron's suggestion, of the two most onerous ones, yeah, sure, that's going to raise a lot of capital. Good. Not so happy with that. Business license tax, Ron raised
Joe, that was my suggestion.
Was it?
That was mine.
Okay, don't worry about it. Camarillo's got outlet stores. We got a lot of empty businesses on Agora Road. Perhaps you'd like to fill them with outlet stores. In any event, I agree. You got to look at the size of the city that you're trying to compare to. You can't compare something that is much bigger in area size, population size, to what's going on here. And I thought that Ron's characterization as a bedroom community is probably closer to the fact. It sounds like you're not going for a property tax, so I'm not even going to comment on that. And good choice. Assessments. Now, the sponsorship naming rights is the only thing that costs the residents nothing. And the only proviso in the staff report is, gee, it's going to eat up staff time. And I'm thinking, well, then it's only costing me staff time, you know? And if you say to me, well, we don't have enough staff for this. Well, you do have a large group of commissioners who are apparently sitting there doing nothing at the moment. And you might find some volunteers who are willing to come in. So you might want to consider that as well. You know, it isn't all about staff and contracts. Sometimes there's free labor out there, and we got nothing better to do, like me. So on the transient occupancy tax, I was wondering what makes Malibu more desirable that they can charge 15% and we can only charge 12%. I'm not a fan of profiting off of you know, the bad fortune of anybody else, but I figure there aren't many people staying in Malibu at the moment. So the opportunity for people to stay in Calabasas might become more desirable. So maybe you want to take a look at some of those things. That's pretty much it. I think that what we're looking at here is that you're talking about you got a lot of capital improvement costs coming up and maintenance costs. And, well, basically, nobody buys a car and never expects to maintain it. So a question from a resident would be, well, why weren't there plans for these things before? How did we get into this hole? I understand you all weren't involved at the time, but if we're supposed to trust this body, and you're saying, oh, no, to trust us now, that's a problem for people, right? And that's a reasonable question for people to ask. Why are we in this hole in the first place? I haven't heard an awful lot of talk about that other than it sounds like, gee, we didn't expect certain things to happen that I think most reasonable people know are going to happen. So that's my comments. I hope I wasn't very cruel. I
No,
like
you're-
you people.
Thank you, Joe.
I know
Your
it's
comments
hard to
were all appreciated.
Mayor,
And-
Mayor, if I could jump in. Over here.
Sure.
Joe, great points. One item to think about on the sunset clause. In my previous city, we did just that. And we found ourselves in a pickle, which was we could only utilize those funds as one-time money. And so about 5 years later, we were right back to the voters saying, you know, we have all these operational needs, ongoing operational needs. And so we went back to the voters and asked if they would remove the sunset clause, and they did. But when you treat something as just a 10-year, we can't put that toward anything that's any ongoing cost. It's just one-time money. And you see the projections on there, expenses don't go down after 10 years, they continue. So in terms of lessons learned, it sounds good up front. You know, you get those short-term victories and think, the sunset clause, people will be more attracted to that. But really, it just kind of hampers and kind of handcuffs us in terms of what expenditures look like moving forward. So just lessons learned from previous cities. I wanted to share that with you.
So you answered my question. You're asking for forever.
Well, we're not asking for anything yet. And just for the members of the public, just to let you know that a sales tax has got to have a termination date on it when it goes to the ballot box. And cleverly, you can use a clause, it's terminated when repealed by the voters, as opposed to say it's terminated in 12 years. So those are all decisions that we're going to have to weigh as we move forward. I think what we're really looking for here is, are there other ways to cut? And if so, we want to hear them. If there aren't other things that we want to cut, and what I've heard tonight is don't cut public safety. In fact, I think we keep hearing to add to public safety. And if we're not going to cut, where are we going to get our revenues from? So we'll go ahead and take
Peter?
Yes,
No.
I keep hearing voices. I can't tell where they're coming from.
I just wanted to know if someone could explain to the public, because I think it's a really important point, with the sales tax, how the county could ultimately go after. Can you explain it? There's a certain amount left that could be, whoever wants to explain it, there's a certain amount left that the sales tax could rise, and it could either be by the city or the county. So you might end up paying paying a higher sales tax rate and the money doesn't go to the city. But someone might be able to explain it better. I think
wanna do it, or
I think
you
it's
wanna take it, Ron?
I think it's
Okay.
an important point.
Yes.
So the California State Legislature actually put into California law how much or how high the sales tax could go throughout the entire state. LA County, being LA County, we have a special provision so that we can go even higher. And so what the remaining amount is 1%. That's the most that we could do. That's the most that the county could do, or another taxing entity that can increase the sales tax within LA County. So that's our cap, is the 1% here in LA County. But that's for us in Calabasas. If we were another city that had already done a 3/4 cent sales tax initiative, they only have 1/4 cent left to do an increase. So a total of 1% here in LA County.
So let's expand on this a little bit if we can. The maximum sales tax above the line is?
So currently, I'll answer it this way. Currently, our sales tax in the city of Calabasas is 9.75%. We can go to 10.75%.
Okay. And you want to jump in here with the?
I'm going to let Scott jump in and just,
Okay.
yeah, with a couple
Yeah,
more.
so Councilmember Weintraub, great point, and I think that's probably one of the most paramount things to explain to everyone is that there's 1% that's on the table, and it's going to be a matter of, does a special district come in there and scoop that up? Does the county come in here and scoop that up? And if so, we're never going to see that money. So it's most prudent and the wisest thing for the city of Calabasas to capitalize on this 1% now while we can and keep those dollars local.
And if I could just say it another way, okay? We've all seen ballot measures asking for another 1/2 cent sales tax or 3/4 cent sales tax to cover the jails, to cover homelessness initiatives. All of these things that keep coming bite into that 10.75% maximum that we have. Now, there's a few exceptions where they can pass a tax that's what we call below the line. But there is a cap at 10.75%. So people that are worried about a 25% sales tax, we'll never get there. There's a law that stops us from getting there, okay? What we're concerned with, what I'm particularly concerned with, is if the county has another measure that comes out that's for a really good cause, whether it's, homelessness or crime or whatever, if they put another measure out and the public votes in favor of that, then this last 1% could be taken by the county, and we would lose the ability to increase our city taxes. We get such a small portion of the taxes as it is, so this would allow us to keep those dollars here in the city. And Charlotte, you've been very patient, so I'm going to give you the microphone.
Thank you. I've really studied this document in depth, and it seems like there's a lot of information here to process, and I really don't have a good lay of the land because I haven't been going to the council meetings and following everything. But this is just from my own experiences. Having passed a bond for the school district, $98 million, I have a little bit of experience supporting measures that need to be approved by the voters. The parcel tax falls on the homeowners. Bond measures fall on the homeowners. But the utility tax that you're proposing, let's say it goes from 5 to 6%, that's not 1%, that's a 20% increase. Let's say it goes down to 10%, that's a 100% increase on the utility tax. And that will inadvertently affect the homeowners again. So that's something to consider because it's homeowners that you're. And businesses. Oh, and business. Okay, and businesses too. Okay, so that's one thing. At the end of every year, I've noticed that there are a lot of things happening in the city in June. There's monies left over, and I don't know whether they can put them in a fund for the following year, or whether you use it or you lose it. But at some point in time, because there's a structural issue here, we need to create some kind of infrastructure. I would like to see the monies that are not used be dedicated to a line item. I don't know whether we have a line item, Ron, for deferred maintenance. Saying if we could do a 2 or 3% line item, and it should come from every department. If they have money leftovers, don't spend it on more signs. Don't spend it on more flowers. Put it into that deferred maintenance fund so that the city can meet that quota of 2 or 3%. Let's see what else I've got here. There are still a lot of sacred cows. This reminds me of working at a school where we set up a math lab. And guess what? The scores improved tremendously. But they kept the math lab. We have things going on in this city that have been on the books for a long, long time. And they automatically reappear. So let's take a hard look at what are the sacred cows that this city has. I have my own ideas. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because everybody has their own ideas on what's important. When we first started the city, we branded the city with a lot of things that we don't need to brand anymore. And let's look at some of these sacred cows and see where we can cut expenses. I think the perception that the electorate needs to see is that it's not just about taxing, but about everybody putting their head together and cutting back on some of these sacred cows. I'm going to read you something from the newspaper. And it was just mainly about the state of California, but it seems
Charlotte, could
applicable.
I ask you to just keep it brief? Are you going to read the whole article for us, or
No, it's
just
a
a
quote.
piece? Okay,
It's a soundbite.
please do.
Oh, it's a soundbite. No, I wouldn't do that to you. Okay. In June, the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California reported that 55% of Californians, if given a choice, would rather pay fewer taxes and get less services than pay more in taxes and get more services. We have not done a monkey survey. And I think that would be something that the homeowners, and everybody, the residents, should have a chance. It doesn't have to be 10 questions, wait 1 to 5, and see what it is that where the homeowners and where everybody, the residents, feel about this. Let's see what else. All right, let's see what else. The capital improvements. I really feel that we need to, if we're going to be raising money, not only to balance the budget, but to create a fund for capital improvements, the homeowners who are paying the taxes, the residents, need to know this ahead of time. This is part of the process of taxing people for a specific purpose. And this would give the city the opportunity to be accountable and the residents to feel there's transparency. If you're going to say that you are going to, and we need to do this very badly, the parking lot at the Tennis and Swim Center, that's really in danger. And they did some maintenance work. Although, by the way, if you have to replace something and you decide to put a Band-Aid on it and maintain it, it's going to end up costing more money because you have to keep on maintaining it and maintaining it and maintaining it rather than replacing it and fixing it in the first place. So that's all I have to say because I think I've exceeded my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm going to come to my council members in just a minute. I did want to share a couple of comments on what was just brought up to us. Our city created a deferred maintenance fund about 5 years ago now, and we have been funding it on a regular basis, tucking away as much money as we possibly can. There's no way that we'll catch up to the last 25 years of our city infrastructure aging, but we've already done that, and we're dedicated to that, and that's one of the things that's in front of you tonight, which is why we need to change the ratio of revenues to expenses. There are no sacred cows here. We will certainly, talk about those at any time. And if anybody has a sacred cow they want to put on the slaughtering table, tonight is the night. And we have done a survey of the community, and we will continue to do more. That's part of our plan moving forward. All great comments. Just wanted to ask one more thing. Scott, do you want to give us a hint on capital improvements and what we might be seeing in the future?
Yeah, happy to do that. If I may circle back real quick, in terms of impacts, if we move forward with the 1% sales tax, that equates to $7.91 per month per resident. Relatively nominal. I think we can all agree with that. But Charlotte, you brought up some great points in terms of impacts of the other revenue models and so forth. So anyway, $7.91 a month. I'm a Calabasas resident, and I can forego Starbucks each month. So.
Carol, you want to come on up?
I have one comment to speak to Kinden's proposed business tax. It looks like the sales tax at 1% is what we're going to end up with. If you also impose a business tax on the business, you're hitting them twice, because their patrons can't pay it. And as a former business owner in Calabasas, one of the reasons we brought our business to Calabasas was to avoid that Los Angeles City tax. It's a nightmare to even administer. So I would strongly recommend against that. And most of the businesses, in the past, I have surveyed the businesses in Calabasas, and many of them are lawyers, doctors, those kinds of businesses that really wouldn't give you a lot of revenue and hurt the few companies that you do have. And you really need those companies to help our economy.
Can I respond, Mayor, on that one?
Of course.
Carol, I love that comment because we felt the same way. So just a few months ago, we proposed a business registry program, just a minimal fee to just know how many businesses were in town. And we heard very clearly from the businesses that they don't want to be taxed in any manner.
The registry is the first step on a slippery slope.
Yeah, and so that's why we went out to the community and asked that question. If I could also go back, for those of you who still have Exhibit A in front of you, if you look down to the very bottom, under expenses, the second the second to the last item is a facility capital set-aside fund.
Yes.
So we do have our deferred maintenance fund. We do have some monies available for projects. But what we've looked at is we really need about $2.8 million a year to just maintain the facilities. That's new roofs in the time. It's paint, it's bathrooms, it's whatever it is. And so we can't even get to $2.8 million per year until 2031 if we're projecting that out. So what we're proposing is start off at about $750,000 a year, putting money aside until we get up to that $2.8 million per year to be able to have enough to cover those capital facility costs. Again, so we're thinking of that. Charlotte, great point. And we built that into the model because that has to happen. It has to be very clear that we're looking at maintaining the assets that we have in the community.
Brian, you want to come on up?
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to be able to top anything that Joe and the others have already said. I'm Brian Cameron, Calabasas resident. One of the things that has been pointed out is that we've got this really deep bench of professional people who have time to volunteer. I'm seeing it, we're seeing it in Epic. What I would like to see is the city fostering a sense of, for example, neighborhood watch programs. I mean, they're spattered here and there. I'd like to see that organized as a citywide function of volunteers, organizing and encouraging other communities to do the same thing. If we can start cutting back on crime because we're seeing something and saying something, then maybe that can affect the long-term growth in the sheriff's budget. Malibu uses a volunteers on parole program where they have individuals who are licensed, if you would, or to issue parking tickets and those sorts of things. Maybe that revenue doesn't flow to the city, but maybe something like that. Again, volunteers on parole. I'm really big on volunteers, but don't take any of mine. Particularly you. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we are going to have a hard stop at 6:45, but if we want to continue the discussion, we will continue it after the Pledge of Allegiance at which will begin at 7 o'clock. We've got about 13 minutes left before the break. I'm going to take a moment and go to my council members and ask them for their thoughts and comments at this point. And then we will come back to any other comments from the public. Remember, this is a brainstorming session. I haven't heard anything negative towards what we've talked about, but I'm also looking for new ideas. I'm looking for anything that we haven't thought of, because again, we've got to close a gap here. We can either make more or spend less. There's only two ways to solve a financial crisis, and we're looking for your thoughts and answers. But let me start with our council members and see where they're at. Ed, did you want to kick us off?
So nice to see so many people here, and so many have different ideas and different thoughts. Being on the budget committee and working with Peter and going through this, and also being new to the city, I had a different perspective of what I was going to expect. And I think one of the interesting side notes as I got more involved with city matters and had a better understanding of it, I had a conversation with Kendon, and it had to do with what you mentioned, Brian, VOP, Volunteers on Patrol. And make a long story short, Malibu's got at least a half a dozen cars, probably more today. They've got a whole force of people that are there 24/7. It's admirable. I'm jealous because it's working perfectly, it's under control, and it's growing. But it was brought to my attention we didn't really have the money for it. So this is 3 years ago, and the car that we had is still in disrepair. It's not something anybody really wants to drive because they're going to be out there driving around by themselves. So that was a cause for concern. Another thing came up, because I know our previous city attorney and familiar with the background, having been involved with the senior center and the growth of that and some of our expenses, the deferred maintenance. We really didn't have any until recently. And shame on us because no one knew. Now we have to play catch up. So not only are we playing catch up, but we're also trying to get ahead of the catch up because things are aging as we're sitting here, especially in the rainy season, God knows, with trees falling, and I can go on and on. So, there's few alternatives to what we have to do. If you're sick, you go to the doctor. I don't care if you like an injection, but you're going to have it. I never liked it as a kid, but I found a way to bear through it. Any of the choices we make aren't going to be ones that we're happy with. We're residents as well. We enjoy the city, and we've talked about so many of the items that have been brought up. Joe, I'll give you an idea of the sunset provision. We discussed that in detail, and our assistant city manager brought the same thoughts to us that it could create a problem. I mean, how appropriate would it be to introduce a sales tax idea, but say we're only going to do it for a little while to get ourselves out of this problem? Because we're not in the mood to tax people unless we have to. I don't want to be taxed. It's not right, and especially now that the curtain is open, and it's a surprise to everybody that we're in such a position. So all I can say is I'm very proud of what we've done under the circumstances. We've really worked hard on it. I got to tell you, staff has looked everywhere. If you're in a private business, Carol, you mentioned your company that you were running at that time. I had one for a while as well. You can fight your way out of that because you can spend money. You can bigger companies can have stock options. You can raise cash to open up a new product and sell it, and then that makes up the difference for what the losses are happening. You don't cut down, you grow up. By cutting is not saving, it's not helping, I should say. But here I am with the city budget, and it's a lot different than private practice. We only have so many avenues for revenue. It was shocking to me that what we get on property tax. If we knew this way in advance or really thought of it, this is a problem we could have solved a long, long time ago, knowing that as you extrapolate into the future, this is eventually going to happen, and probably based on historical averages. Like Ron, you've done a great job with it. You're basically on the money, give or take a little tiny wiggle room. If we had done that, if you'd been here years ago, things might be different. But we're faced with these decisions, and I can assure everybody, we have looked at every possible thing. We've been sleepless over it, and I think the resolution of the sales tax is obvious, and how we approach the other items. We need items that are significant. We can't save our way through it. We're going to look at protecting the sacred cows because we all appreciate them. So I'll defer to my other council members, and thank you for attending tonight.
David, you want to share some thoughts?
Okay. I'm just going to go through this quickly and thank everybody for being here, and appreciate the reports, thoughts, suggestions. It's great and tough information in my mind. I have a concern, as we all do, about the budget, and it's something I've been mentioning or speaking for 5+ years, that I have been concerned about this. So I'm going to go through my thoughts on each of the items presented quickly. The sales tax. Well, I don't know what is, I should know. LA, Agoura, Westlake, Malibu, what are their numbers? How would it affect potentially businesses here and residents? I saw the 57% not residents, so I understand that. And while I believe it would have passed 2024, I've already said that, and I'm generally not a fan of taxes in general, it certainly seems like that is the #1 option we are presented with as a city at this point to protect the future, and that's our job, is to protect the future of the city. And then I'm going to ask for a plan B, which I've mentioned. Even if we say as a council, as a community, let's go forward with this on the ballot. If it doesn't pass, what is plan B? And we should have that in mind, in my mind. TOT, we're going to have a lot of visitors and tourists coming to Southern California and Calabasas next year for the World Cup. Other big events, whether it's the basketball championship, the All-Star Games, the Super Bowl, and especially the Olympics in 2028. So if we raise 3%, will we lose potential revenue to cities nearby that might have a lower TOT? That's one question. That's on page 4 of your report. And have we reached out yet to our 4 hotels? We only have 4 hotels right now that I know of in the city to ask their thoughts if they think it might affect their potential customers or future loss of income. Certainly willing to consider it, but those questions. Business license fee, I'll just support what was said already. I've said it before, no. We've never had a business license nor business registration fee. I've never been in support of it. I think we need to help boost and encourage businesses in the city, encourage those from the Palisades, from Malibu to come here and open up and support local business without any additional tax there. Parcel tax, I'm not a fan of taxes in general, but certainly willing to listen to others here and out in the public, of course, as to the issue of the flat tax, and that does not solve what we need. UUT, no, I'm not supportive of that. I already think we have a large taxes based upon that, and we're going to have increases ahead for utilities, so I would not be supportive of that. Sponsorships, yes, to consider, absolutely. We've already talked about that 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. To me, I'd love to see for larger spaces a longer term contract with a higher dollar amount for us if we could. That would be a suggestion. Do you want me to go on to my other comments? Okay, all right. In addition to the potential revenue sources, my belief is we must be prudent and carefully scrutinize and need to reduce expenses as well. There's a combination here. Certainly, we're doing something, in my opinion, that's something we wouldn't necessarily have done as a council. At least I don't think I would have. I don't think anyone would have, as far as sales tax goes. But at the same time, we need to be careful. Since the end of the pandemic, the government stopped writing checks, business has changed, spending habits have changed. We need to be more aware when sales tax revenues to our city go down 3 or 4 quarters in a row, and what that might mean for our future. I've said this, so it's not anything new. I may have said it in meetings before. We've not slowed down too much of our spending as this trend continued, so I want us to be really careful. We did, however, cut things, the Pumpkin Festival, from 2 to 1 days. No more 4th of July expenditure except the day. That is not our doing. Our city wanted it and tried and still tries, but that's something we don't have. We've cut the flu clinic, which is not necessarily a major expenditure. I just found out about that. I don't know about others. We recently cut one concert in the park and about 20% of council discretionary funds. While I understand most and support most of these, it's not, in my opinion, the way to balance the budget going forward. Revenue options are great ideas, and hopefully we'll have more business, as I've said before, with point of sale in our city. I'd like to see us find out, we have a great economic outreach task force, whatever it's officially called. I don't want to say anything inappropriate. That goes out. I'd like to see them get point of sale. We can have a business here. We have a great business, Cheesecake Factory, but their point of sale is not here. And what I mean by point of sale is where they sell, the revenues come to the city. So there are smaller, not huge space businesses that have IT, that have all kinds of high tech that we can encourage, hopefully, to come here in the future. I'd love to see that. And also we have, and we are hoping everybody does the right thing, and we have an annexation in the future that allows us to develop as well. At the same time, we have huge expenses, as the largest 2 listed here are salary, medical, pensions, sheriffs. We do all love sheriffs, and public safety is all of our #1 priority. Independent contractors, which was explained quite well, thank you, and litigation expenses, which we haven't talked about. In the last 10 years, we have spent quite a bit for the right reasons, for the moral reasons, for the city, for the public. But we need to take a look at those things in a very difficult budget cycle. Our staff is great, so are the sheriffs. There is no issue there. But in a situation we have now, I don't see a plan B. That's what I'm looking for when it comes to those items. We need to consider those. I'm not supportive of cutting services and programs for residents while maintaining the continued increase of expenses without a plan B. That's it. Thank you.
It's 6:45. The plan was to take a solid break 15 minutes before we start our council meeting. So to you two, I just ask, is it okay if we continue with your comments after the break, or did you want to do you want to postpone the break and keep talking?
Mayor, if I could just jump in. So just so the community is aware, we have a Girl Scout troop coming in to do the flag salute at 7 o'clock. So we thought we'd be done at this meeting, and so we were scheduled till 6:45. Clearly, this meeting needs to go on, but they need a little bit of time to come in and set up and practice. And so, Mayor, I'd recommend that we have a break, and then we continue with the study session, and then we'll begin the council meeting after we've finished with the study session.
I'm flexible, but it just seems like we can't start the meeting early, but we can start it late.
My comments are quick.
Mine are too.
Okay, let's continue then.
Do you want
And we'll,
Oh, me? Okay.
if Julie is here, if we could just let the Girl Scouts know that we're running a little late, and we'll make sure to give them ample time to rehearse. They'll get their full 15 minutes. It just won't be right now.
I'm going to go very quickly.
give you a cookie.
I do support the idea of an initiative or a referendum, an initiative, and but I would suggest that if it's anything required over 50%, that we work on a voter-based petition initiative so that we only need 50% plus 1. I've always supported the transient occupancy tax. Going back at our budget meetings, I've called for that a number of times, and I think that the staff report is correct in stating that that is the easiest because our residents don't actually pay for that. And if you add just a couple percentage to the existing rate, it will not deter people from staying at our hotels. I think the best option is the sales tax one that staff also is put in as either a recommendation or very prominently. I think that would be good, and I think if we gear it toward a specific purpose we can still have it at 50% if the voter petition is circulated, I believe. As far as cuts, I do not support any cuts to the sheriff's contract. We have a significant rise in crime in recent years, and I would not want to cut any of those services. We do, however, while I don't support layoffs, our staff proportionally to other cities our size is much larger, and I think we could look at being more restrictive with our current hiring freeze and not hiring behind people who leave the city employment and consolidating some of the positions, even if that means that our services are cut in terms of just the response time. I think that's something we need to look at. And then at-cost services, sometimes we let things go a little bit in the past, and we haven't kept up our fees with inflation and haven't looked at them annually. We need to do that and make sure whoever's using the city services is charged a proper fee so the taxpayers don't, at large, make up for the difference. And finally, I think that we need to look more broadly at annexations that will bring in areas that do generate net revenues. There are a lot of them around, and we're in the middle of one right now. That should be completed, but after that, there's other ones as well. Those are my comments. Thank you.
And Alicia?
I will be quick. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and for those that weren't able to provide comments, feel free to email us to continue sharing your ideas. I've been in support of raising our TOT tax for quite some time. I think that people get a lot when they stay here, and reality is most people don't even look at what the TOT tax is when you go to a hotel. So I think that is a no-brainer. I do not support cutting our sheriff's service. I do think we are in need of evaluating the sales tax. And as I said before, if we don't do it, someone else is going to take that money and we're still going to be on the hook for paying. So that's the biggest reason for me. We have these major capital improvement projects that we need to address. But one thing that I think the public should be made aware of, we've responded aggressively regarding the landfill to protect the health and safety of our community, something that our city is very committed to. But that comes at a cost, almost $500,000, fighting the county every step of the way. So that's not money that was budgeted. We had an annexation, Craftsman's Corner, that we were planning, that we thought was going to be happening. We were very, very close. And right when we filed a lawsuit against the county relating to the landfill, they pulled our annexation. That would have brought in another $500,000 a year. So we're sitting here at a situation, we're sitting here with a significant impact to our budget as a result of actions by the county in regards to the landfill and the annexation. So that's really important to remember. The county's supposed to be helping us, and we're here fighting against them, and it's costing us a significant amount of money. But as we leave this, I just really want to stress that if we don't go after this 1%, I really believe that the county will. We're still going to be paying it, and we're not going to receive any of the benefits. And I want our community to be, I don't want it to age. We have so much to be proud of here, but we have to keep up our maintenance just like we do our own personal homes and property. So I think we are really left with no choice given the circumstances. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd suggest we go ahead and wrap this up. Just any members of the public that had something that has not been said tonight. I don't see, if this is going to go long, we're going to have to continue it until afterwards. And I've seen a few hands, so I'm going to make the decision. We will continue this once our meeting resumes. It is 6:51, and at 7:06, we will be resuming this meeting here following the Pledge of Allegiance.